Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino Degregori, engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino Degregori.
We've been taught that power and kindness live on opposite ends of the table. That to be one, you have to give up the other. Today's guest spent 10 years inside the U.S. Senate, one of the most power-driven environment on earth, and walked away with the opposite conclusion. The most powerful leaders in the room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who knows themselves well, enough to be run by their own ego. Hi, I'm Gino Degregori, and welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. My guest today is Tinna Jackson. Tinna is a nationally recognized executive coach and strategist, the founder of Jackson Consulting Group and best-selling author. She spent 10 years in the U.S. Senate, as I mentioned, eventually as the Deputy Chief of Staff, and went on to a senior executive role at a national political committee. So she's led inside some of the highest pressure, highest stakes systems we have in this country. But here's what made me want to have her on the podcast. After all of that, politics, power, the C-suite, the work she's most passionate about now is helping leaders get honest with themselves. Emotional intelligence, naming your triggers, understanding your own ego before it understands you. Her book, The Power Play Journal, won an Axiom Business Book Award, and her coaching program, Pivot to Power, exists to close a mentorship gap she watched leaders fall through. I'm super excited to have you here, Tinna. And, we already started talking before in the green room here, before we got ready. You have a lot of great wisdom and stories to share. But can you share a little about your background and tell us about your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually born and raised in Washington, D.C. There are not many of us that are working in politics, or at least politics adjacent, that are actually from the city. But yes, I'm born and raised here. The majority of my career has been in national politics, like you said, both in the U.S. Senate and at a national political committee. I've also done some work in nonprofits, and a lot of my clients are also in the nonprofit trade association space and in national and local politics.
Excellent. Well, congratulations and all your success. I know that it's a career in itself is very admirable, and appreciate you, your service there, as well as now helping other leaders really find out who they really are, right? So, but before we dive into this conversation, the first question I love asking my guests is, what does being a kind leader mean to you?
Yeah, this is it's tough. And the reason I say it's tough is because people have become so hardened over the years, I think, with so many competing priorities and family responsibilities, that for me, being a kind leader is being an empathetic leader, is recognizing that you have to be, I think it's a requirement. It's a requirement for you to be nice. In order for you to maintain control of yourself and help you get to the ultimate goal of building good, solid relationships, whether they're with colleagues, with employees, or with other leaders, and just across the board in general.
Excellent. So can you tell me a little, to pull a thread on some of that, some stories that you've experienced, whether, in Senate or not, or in the industry right now, someone who has been kind to you, a leader has been kind and has had an impact in your life, or you've, made an impact in somebody's life? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have several examples, actually. When I was working with a law firm many years ago, back in the 90s, the managing partner was incredibly kind. He never raised his voice. He was very effective in his role. Everyone liked him. And almost every Friday, he knew we were working hard because, the firm was getting good results. Every Friday, he would send a few of us to the store, pick up some chips and dip and, wine. And as an organization, as a team, we would sit in this large conference room and just talk. Managing partners, at the time we were called secretaries, administrative aides, the receptionists, we were all on the same level as peers sitting around this conference table every Friday, just having a drink and eating chips and talking about life and talking about, our future. It was a great experience. I was with that firm for about 5 years.
Nice. What an amazing experience. And that allowed that environment to be, not necessarily hierarchical, more like, I hear you, I see, I want to connect with the folks and understand their life beyond just these four walls in the business side, right? Which was beautiful. So what are you seeing nowadays as it relates to, that type of culture? Are you seeing that kind of fading away? Are you seeing coming back? What's your experience now with that?
I want to believe that it's coming back because it almost has to. I think people are very emotional about a lot of things, right? We are post-COVID. There's a new virus going around, apparently. People are upset about the political environment. People are just very emotional. And a lot of young people, I think particularly with Gen Z, and I'm sorry that they're getting such a bad rap, but they did come up during COVID, and there were not many opportunities to be in offices to learn various processes and how to function in corporate America. It's really unfortunate. But I think now people have to find a way. Leaders, managers have to find a way to be kind, to be empathetic, and understand what people are going through before they report to work and what happens after. Many organizations have cliques. There are some people that get along well, and as a result, they form their own little groups. And, sometimes the mean girl syndrome comes up and, other things. And, it's a reality. These things happen.
Yeah.
And so I want to believe that we're getting back to making things make sense in terms of putting employees first, because you can't accomplish your mission without other people. You can't. If you could do it all on your own, hey, we'd all be uber successful.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
No, and I love that. And I brought up culture as asking about if it's coming back from your perspective, especially on the government side, because there is still the hierarchy, and definitely don't want to get political, but I just want to understand that there is a energy, right, and perception that there needs to be from a power. This is what I say, this is what I do. And it's not necessarily people driven, it's more mission driven. And I understand that, especially, if we're talking about military or we're talking about intelligence community, right? That there's lives at stake, and we have to be mindful of that. But at the same time, we're all people. We all need to make sure, right? We gotta, coming back to the culture, just like anything else that lives, that is alive, it needs nurturing, it needs water, it needs food, it needs sun, it needs energy, like all those different things that if you don't give it, it's not gonna grow, it's not gonna flourish, it's not gonna, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Whether it's government or nonprofit or other organizations, everyone deserves good leadership. Even the legacy employees that have been there for many, many years in government, there were employees that were there for 10, 15, 20 years, career service. Those people also exist in other organizations, in corporate and nonprofit, and they need a different level of engagement, right? Because you have to wonder, why would someone stay with this organization for so long? What's the motivation? Are there demotivators? Those people have to continue to be engaged as well, because when new people come in, there's more innovation. When younger people come in, there's more innovation. And then you have a group of legacy employees that have a level of expertise, and also they've got history with the organization,
right,
and context. And so if we are not also focusing on how to bring them along and helping them learn how to innovate, that becomes an issue as well. And you have to exercise more kindness there.
Yes.
Because they are just as emotional as newer people that are coming in and trying to build trust.
100%.
It's easy for people that have been around for a long time to believe that they've already established trust, but to maintain it when another group is coming in year after year and, cycle after cycle, they also experience a lot of emotional feelings when it comes to their job. Sometimes it can be threatening when you see things change.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but people don't like change, but but ultimately starts with ourselves, right? I mean, we talked about, can we be leaders without knowing who we are? Can we be good leaders, right? Without knowing what are our weaknesses, what are our strengths, what are our challenges, what are the things that we need to improve? And then I wanted to kind of dive in a little bit more on that, because you said leadership begins with self-awareness, right? I've heard you say that in the things that I've read about you, right? So that before a leader can be kind, they have to understand their own motivations and their own triggers. And why is that the starting line and not the nice to have?
Oh, it's it's just who we are. We have to know. We have to know why we function the way we function, why we respond the way that we do, where these feelings are coming from. This is all self-awareness. And if we are not more aware of these things as we get promoted into other roles, we have to understand ourselves before we can start managing other people. Now, granted, there are a lot of people that are in leadership and management roles that are not self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
I am sure that they are struggling on some level,
Yep.
Because when you don't have that self-awareness, you start to create chaos unbeknownst to yourself because you're not aware.
Mm-hmm.
You may be showing favoritism because one person on a 10-person team understands you.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand yourself
Right.
first before you start to delegate. I mean, if you think about the ripple effect, if you are not self-aware and you are not delegating because one, you don't know how, and two, you don't understand why you need to in order to be effective, it's going to create chaos in both directions. Let's say you do delegate, but you may just be delegating for the sake of doing it, but the accountability is missing because
Mm-hmm.
you are not holding yourself accountable. It's a continuous back and forth and a ripple effect if self-awareness is not recognized.
Yeah, and it goes deep, right? And I want to go. I know we asked you a question before we started recording, right, about yourself, and I want to go deeper, because I think this is important for the audience to understand. You once traced a strong reaction you had at work back to something unresolved from your childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, can you take us into that? What did naming it actually change about how you lead? Because it's exactly what you're saying. If we're not self-aware, we don't understand our triggers. We don't understand the things that are helping us become the leader that we need to be, or the better version of ourselves, right? And it goes so far. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote an article a couple years ago with Forbes about how childhood trauma shows up in the workplace, and we don't know it until we're triggered. And we don't realize what may have triggered us until we start to dig deep and examine it. And so you might be in a very stressful, high pressure situation, and someone might say something, or you could even smell something that reminds you of a time when you were not cared for, when you did not get the support you needed, when someone ignored you. All of those things contribute to who we are as adults, especially when you have not examined it and you haven't gone back to that place to figure out what the issue was and naming it.
Right.
For me, in my case, something had happened when I was a kid and I was not supported. My reaction was so strong. I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm stomping like a child. This is the one thing about self-awareness too. And I'm not sure how many people are familiar with transactional analysis, but there are multiple ego states. We all have these 3 ego states: adult, parent, and child. When we are challenged, we might go into the child ego state because we are defending ourselves. We are
Mm-hmm.
defending ourselves against something we did not like. And we are secretly throwing a temper tantrum. And the way that that shows up is resistance. Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't agree with that.
Yep.
Okay. Just like as a kid, you don't agree with something that your mom or dad tells you, come into the house, it's 6 o'clock. The street lights are on. I don't want to. Right. And what do? You stomp, you get an attitude, right? It's the same thing. It's that child ego state, right?
Yeah.
And when you respond that way, the person who might be the offender, because you're viewed as the victim, the person that may be the offender, the way that they respond to your activity might determine what you do next.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So let's say it's your boss. In my case, it was a superior. They handled it very well. They were just quiet.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you don't know what to do and you don't want to react and make things worse, sometimes the best thing to do is pause and give the person a minute. That's the adult ego state. That is the best thing you could possibly do.
I call it hold space for people, right? You just gotta hold that space because you don't know what's going on, right? And and just really just listen, right? And then support that. One thing that popped into me as you were telling your story, and I appreciate you sharing that with us, is whatever. I don't know if you ever heard this. Whatever you resist persists.
Yes.
I don't know if you ever heard that, right? So the more you resist, the more that stays with you, right? So understanding those challenges, understanding that, because I also had something similar, immigrating to the country when I was 10 years old. There was a lot of changes, a lot of trauma, right? Get too much into it, but that I still carried through my adult life, and trying to understand that has shaped most of the things that I'm doing as a leader now, to truly understand. And I appreciate you mentioning that self-awareness is critical for leaders out there. And one of the things that I'm doing I have a framework too called CARES. The C stands for clarity, and clarity of yourself comes before anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought I could lead externally. I was like, oh yeah, I can do this, you can do that, blah, blah, blah. And I never paid attention. I didn't pause, right? Until I realized, some of these things are triggering me and how could I improve that? How could I be better? So,
absolutely.
So I appreciate that perspective, So let's go into the power isn't a dirty word, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. You name your book, The Power Play Journal, and you do work in power mapping. A lot of kind, well-meaning leaders flinch at the word power. It's like, so can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, to me, power is authority and knowing who you are. A lot of people are afraid of the word power because they immediately equate it to the top 1% of everything. The president and CEO, or the leader here, leader there. You could be a receptionist and have power. Power is really about influence, right? I know people that are in junior level positions and have the most power in the organization. You know why? Because they're kind. They say hello every morning.
Yeah.
They hold conversations with every person that walks in the building or walks into the office. They know all the kids' names. They know about everyone's vacations. They can make a personal connection with someone. When you are able to influence and make a personal connection with someone, you're gold. You don't even have to perform well.
It's connect, right?
If you can connect with people, if you have the gift of communication, which I believe is one of the highest levels of value for any organization, is being a really good communicator.
Yeah.
And so power, again, is really about influence. And I think when people start to understand that, things get a lot easier. It also equates to, for all of us that have our own businesses, it also helps with sales.
Yeah.
When you are persuading others, when you are convincing others, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say though, kind of power, one thing that popped in my head as you were talking as it relates to almost so that power and ego are for the most part from an understanding of what that means, they equate in the same, right?
Hmm.
And I think it comes from fear too, right? Like when somebody who has pushed their way up through that power, through that ego, and potentially is not necessarily kind, is also afraid of looking within because what they've done or what they become, right? It is also not. They're afraid to change. That is what I'm trying to say, right? Like, so how do we communicate? You talk about communication being very important, so, right? So how do we help some of those leaders that I'm not sure some of them are far to change, but I don't think so. I think there's always an opportunity for people to truly get to know themselves, get to know how they can become a better leader at the end of the day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the most important part to this is recognizing how difficult it is for people to reflect inward.
Yeah,
Many people have gone through life without someone pulling them aside and giving them feedback.
yeah,
And, you get to a certain age, late 30s, 40s, into your later in your career. And if no one has cared enough to have those tough conversations with you, to let you know how you are being received, how people are feeling when you are around.
right, right, right.
That's it's detrimental, and you don't realize it I'm not going to say until it's too late, but you don't realize it, right? And so we have to recognize how difficult it is to do that inward reflection. However, you have to want to.
Yeah,
You have to know that, yes, there are different types of leaders. You choose the kind of leader that you want to be, and you get on that path. But again, you can't do any of that without self awareness and doing that inward reflection. Now, if people don't want to, a lot of this becomes fabricated. A lot of it becomes learned behavior, or what some people believe is the best way to perform and behave, but then it's not authentic and people can feel it. People can tell.
yeah. Yeah, that authenticity for sure, being genuine, it's just energy. And if it's not natural and it's faked, you can't fake it. I mean, I feel,
Mhm.
but coming back to the power almost equals influence. I like that, right? Power equals influence. That anybody at any level, right? No matter what title, remove any title. It's like power and influence is how we connect with people. And I'm just trying to set a scenario here. Like you mentioned, kind of secretary or somebody started their career. What kind of recommendation do you have for them as they're starting, whether entry level or maybe an internship? Because I'm just curious on your perspective on what kind of influence do they have? Do they have any power, or can they help? Can they not help? Are they just listening and learning?
Well, first, I think when you're starting out, I think it's important to recognize that you don't have to be everyone's friend in the workplace. I believe friendships are formed when trust is built. I think that the way trust is built is to be reliable and to perform well.
Mm,
If you're not performing well and you can't be relied on, it's going to be difficult to make friends because employees are watching each other.
yeah,
If one person is getting special treatment, knowing that they're not a good performer,
yeah,
it creates separation.
yeah,
So now the employees are not only watching that performance, they're also watching how they're being treated by the superior.
yeah,
And before you know it, the organization is accommodating that one individual,
yeah.
which it happens all the time.
All the
Happens
time,
all
yeah.
the time. So again, I do think that younger generations, young people, there's a level of professionalism that's required in every space that you walk into for work. But I think performing well, doing a good job is what builds trust, ultimately builds influence because people will want to be around you. You're getting things done, you're moving things forward. People will want to share information with you. And as that continues, before you know it, you're promoted.
Absolutely. I would say to add to that is like, I love that what you said, be reliable, perform well. And I would add, be curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the curiosity is from trying to understand that you don't have all the answers and not everybody has the answers, right? But if you're curious enough to kind of figure things out, that will allow you to improve and grow, whether you're going to be in that organization or not.
Yes, I like that you said be curious. Curiosity is more important than questioning.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because when you question, it can be received negatively.
Right.
I think everyone's smart, right? People are pretty smart. And so when you start to question, if you're not in a place to phrase those questions in a way where it's not going to be received as a challenge to leadership, being curious is definitely the most important play.
Yeah, that's what I look for, like when I'm interviewing for sellers or consultants, right? The curiosity is, and there's certain questions that I ask to find out if they are, right? And the reason I'm bringing the younger generation from your perspective with your experiences, I'm getting ready to hire some interns that are coming in. And I'm not sure if the younger generation are listening to the podcast, but it's always good to get that perspective, right? Because we are, at least myself, I've been experienced as a leader. I'm learning even now, right? I'm every day I'm learning something new, not only about myself, but about how I lead and how other people perceive me, so I continue to improve. But I can't do that by myself, right? So I need a team, right? So you're building the pivot to power, right? Because you saw mentorship gap, right? And then I think that's critical, because if we don't have people that we can look up to, or somebody that can pick up the phone, hey, Tinna, this happened to me today. But what am I missing? What is my blind spot? That is critical. Like, if people don't have others to talk to, and you can't, obviously your spouse or maybe your family members, they might be able to listen to you, but they may not understand the dynamics, the capacity, the intricacies of some of these business environments. So expand on that. We'd love to learn what pushed you into starting this and how that is going with your groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that I've built, it was based on past voids. I certainly did not recognize that I had a mentor until I was in the Senate. And when I got to the Senate, I was already about 7 years into my career. So when I got to the Senate, after a few years, probably would have been 10 years before I actually had a mentor. Someone that saw my performance, pulled me aside and said, everyone loves you, but you're scary. You're scary.
Right.
I'm like, what do you mean? I'm doing a good job. I'm coming in, I'm doing my work. What do you mean? And they told me, everyone loves you, but you are so scary. We need you to be more accommodating. We need you to understand that things need to be done, not necessarily a certain way, but you have to project kindness. You have to be accommodating, because we have a mission and we're trying to get things done, and we can't get things done unless the person that is responsible for filtering the work, that people can feel comfortable going to that person to get things done.
Yeah.
And so that was huge for me. And so, but again, I was like 10 years into my career before I had gotten that feedback. So that means I went for 10 years with people probably afraid to say anything to me about anything. And so that was huge for me. Now, it shouldn't have been 10 years before someone noticed anything. And so for me, building Pivot to Power was really about recognizing the gaps in leadership and calling things out, making leaders self-reflect through the Power Play Journal, giving 32 battle-tested strategies and asking people to self-reflect in every chapter. Am I a resilient leader? Am I an ethical leader?
Yeah, right.
All of these things. Do I know what strategic planning is? And so then looking at another group of people, the people that are reporting in to these leaders, what are they experiencing? Because One of the things I got to say about leadership, I'm not convinced that we really know what it takes to get certain things done. Some of our timelines and deadlines that we give to people are based on what we theoretically think could realistically be done within a particular time frame. But if we haven't done that work, if we haven't been on the ground level performing those duties,
100%.
we don't really know. So the level of pressure we're putting on people, and then the downstream.
Yep.
From that second level down to even the coordinator, whatever ripples from the top will ripple downward.
Right.
And so recognizing all of those gaps, I developed a program, which is Pivot to Power. It's a leadership development ecosystem where we work with leaders and we work with training their teams to manage up so that they can meet in the middle and become more effective units.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that's needed, right? I mean, as you can see, there is a gap in there. And having not just the framework, but then let's go back to the community or the group, the mentor, right? And truly understand what the impact of that is, right? Because is there a difference between a leader who has ongoing support or somebody they can call and one who doesn't? Now, what do you see shows up in their decisions,
Absolutely. Look, I want to believe that leadership is not complicated. It's only complicated if you think it is complicated.
Right.
The difference between leaders who have a strategic thought partner, or whether that's someone internal or external, or a community that they can bounce ideas off of, and someone who doesn't have that, the person who doesn't have that, they are alone.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
No, it's lonely if you want it to be lonely.
Exactly.
Because you are not the only one going through these things. You are not the only one that's grappling with funding. You are not the only one that has to make tough decisions every day. You are not the only one who is grappling with some of your own bad decisions that you've made.
Yeah.
Now, the leader who has that community or has those strategic thought partners or is actually utilizing the team that they hired and put in place to support them.
Yeah.
Even if they make a mistake, there's a group there to support them.
Exactly.
There's a group there where they can make a quick phone call, send a quick text and say, hey, I'm struggling here. What have you guys done in the past?
Mm-hmm.
A group of peers, a group of peer CEOs
right.
In a community that they can communicate with. They are definitely a lot stronger. And I think that because of that community, they are more confident.
Yep, absolutely. No, I appreciate you sharing that. And for me, my personality, growing up and kind of the impact of being in a new country and then, assimilating myself into the style and the culture, I was always kind of like a lone wolf. I always drove. And it took me a while to realize I don't have all the answers. I need perspective. I need perspective from other peers, other leaders, CEOs, or even perspective of my people that are working with around me, right? Because if you don't ask those questions, hey, let's be honest, this is a safe space. Here's my perspective of how I'm leading. What am I missing? What are my blind spots, right? And if you position it from getting that feedback, constructive feedback, you'll find out that people will give you that feedback. If you position it more like, you're not going to get in trouble. It's more like, hey, I feel like I have blind spots. What am I missing? And people will come and provide that feedback right away, right? So you can, going back to what you say, you can create that circle. You can create that support, and you need it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. When you don't have that support, you talked about, when you first got started and how introverted you were. I was the same way. I literally was going to work and going home. I was going to work, doing my job, not communicating with anyone, and just going home and doing it all over again. It wasn't until that chief of staff had that conversation with me where I started to open up, because I recognized that the more I talked to people and the more people were talking to me, that's a big part of our development. It's a part of us getting more experience and getting better, because the more information we have and the more perspectives we have from other people, the more enriched we are and the more resourceful we become.
Yep.
And the better leader you end up becoming.
Exactly. Exactly. Beautiful. Well said there. So let's go into the next segment, which is flip the mic. You have a question for me.
I do have a question. So, in talking about leadership, one of the things that I am starting to focus on, and I'm about to release a report on executive capacity. CEOs, executive directors of nonprofits, just leadership across the board. People are exhausted, people are burned out. And so, how do you maintain kindness when you are exhausted, you're burned out, you are having to deal with so many different decisions simultaneously, even for yourself? How do you manage that when executive capacity is kind of at its limit?
I think it's a great question, Tina. I appreciate that. It's a new one. Good perspective on my end. So I want to the first word that popped in my mind, and it may come across a little negative, but selfish. You need to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are working for others and you continue to focus on the external, who's taking care of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Who's taking care of your body? Who's taking care of your mind, your soul, your spirit, all those different things? We forget that. I've been leading this company for the 18 plus years through grind, through sweat. And just recently, I'll be honest, right, and open to the audience here. Just the last 6 months, I've been delegating a lot to my team. I've been trusting and giving a lot more, and has given me so much I given empowerment as well as giving me the power to start taking care of me in a way that I can give more. So the more I can fill my cup, then I can pour more on other people's cup. And that is, I think, the challenge, I think, in a lot of leaders where they're like, no, let's put everybody on. We're climbing that mountain. We're going to put everybody on top and we're going to make it happen. And you see that grind energy. And that is it gets you far. But the reality, you're missing yourself, and goes back to that self awareness. What is it that you want? What is it that you want to impact in this life? What is your legacy, right? Who are you and what do you want to accomplish at the end of the day? The more and more you think about that and be selfish and then take care of yourself, the more you're going to attract, the more you're going to build, the more you're going to create that abundance energy and environment around you that is going to 10x your life.
Absolutely. That's right. I agree. But for some people, it's difficult. It's difficult to be selfish. I was talking with someone the other day and I was like, what's going on? Why do you have so much going on? He's like,
Mhm.
I do. I just have so much going on. I have so many responsibilities. Like, why? Delegate it. Just have someone else do it. And is everything urgent?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just because you want things done like right now, well, sounds like that's a self-inflicted wound.
Yep. Yep. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that a lot. And I think there's a lot of pressure, external pressures, deadlines, self-inflicting, created by ourselves, right? And it's okay to give a perspective or reset expectations. It's like, hey, boss, thank you very much for, or customer, right? Thank you very much for wanting this and this thing. But the reality is, if we want to do a good job with quality with that, we're going to need an additional thing.
Absolutely.
The worst I can say is no, and then you can try to keep negotiating. But at the very least, you are coming at it from a good place, not a place of you just continue to not take care of yourself, not take care of your team or your environment. So thank you for asking the question, Tina. I think that was a good area for us to kind of dive into. But going into the rapid fire question, I got 3 questions for you. The Power Play Journal is built on reflection, right? What's one question you ask yourself on repeat that's never stopped being useful?
Oh, that's a good one. I always ask myself, what's my why? I have to
Mm,
keep that top of mind because, again, executive capacity, you're doing so much. Sometimes you get upset. Sometimes things don't go your way. And I always have to remember, why am I doing this? Why did I develop this program? Why did I go into business for myself? Why am I trying to be so helpful to people? Why am I the coach for all of these CEOs that are grappling with all of this organizational drama? And I have to remember my why.
yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. The why is very important.
Mhm.
Next one is 10 years in the Senate. One leadership lesson from that world that the corporate world badly needs to hear.
Oh, the importance of building strong relationships.
Relationships.
Self awareness is important as you're building relationships. You know, it's one thing for people to be grouped together on a team and, get along well and so forth. But when
Mhm.
you are building solid relationships, that is where you start to see what support really looks like.
Right.
Especially as someone who grew up not having the support that I believed I needed, I go out of my way to provide it for other people.
Yeah.
And so having those solid relationships as you are building relationships with your colleagues, if you can imagine politicians, how are they getting work done? They have to build relationships across the aisle, whether you're Democrat or Republican, in order to get a lot of, these laws reviewed, passed, debated, and so forth, right? You need support. Everyone needs support. And in order to build that support, you have to know how to build solid relationships.
Beautiful. I love that. Relationships. All right. So the last one, finish this sentence. The leaders I worry about most are the ones who never.
Are the ones who never admit they don't know how to do something.
Mm.
I was talking with a client about this not too long ago. And one of the things that I notice on many teams is that no one wants to admit that they don't know how. Or I don't know how to coach my team. Okay, if someone would just say that,
Yeah, right.
so much easier for others to come in and provide that support. But that signals to me that they've been going at this alone for too long.
Yeah.
They're limited on self-awareness, and they don't know how to ask for help.
Yep.
Like, asking for help is not a weakness. It is a strength to recognize that you are really good at your job, but you are not perfect. None of us are perfect. There's always room for additional development.
Absolutely.
And if people would just be comfortable seeing the ask for help as a strength and not a weakness, you'd be surprised how many people would reach out or lend you a hand or be ready to jump in and help you. And don't get me wrong, I struggle with it.
Well, I do too.
I think I need help on this. Who can I
Right.
call? And you just have to do it.
Exactly. No, I love it. And I agree 100% with you. And that's something that I continue to struggle with. And even my shift 6 months ago into letting go and delegating more, it helped me to be self-aware of my weakness. Like, I'm not good at attention to detail. I'm not good at processes. And I keep saying that to people. I am not good. That's not what I bring value to the company.
Mm-hmm.
So people hear that, okay, well, let me jump in. That is my strength. And let me grab that from you, or let me work through that. And now I don't have to think about that. That's not an energy that's draining from me. And now I can focus on energy that is bringing value to the organization.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Tinna. Before we start kind of closing things out here, we're kind of top of the hour here. The one thing, if a leader takes only a single truth from this whole conversation and carries it into their next hard moment, what do you want it to be?
Give yourself grace and ask for support. I almost want to tell you to demand it.
Yeah. I like that.
We can't keep carrying things alone. Especially for those of us who have team, we have staff, give people an opportunity to support you. And that's a part of their development.
Yes, absolutely. What a great, I love that. I mean, that's what we need. So what I'm taking away from this conversation is that self-awareness isn't the soft part of leadership. It's the bravest part, right? Like,
absolutely.
Your whole body of work says the same thing in a different way. You cannot lead people anywhere you haven't been willing to go inside yourself. So power isn't the enemy of kindness, right? Ego unexamined is.
That's right.
and leaders who do this work, we really need to keep invest in yourself. Be a little selfish, but also don't be afraid of sharing, that you don't know those things, right? And the more you educate, the more you communicate, the more you can influence and the better teams that you are going to build all around, and the more impact you're going to generate to your customers, to your partners, and communities, in general. So I appreciate you joining, Tinna. And where can our listeners find you, learn about Jackson Consulting, and get their hands on that Power Play Journal?
Yes. The Power Play Journal is available on Amazon, which is great. And I am on Instagram as I am Tinna Jackson, also on YouTube, and also TinnaJackson.com, Tinna with 2 N's.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and all the real good nuggets that I'm sure our listeners will take actions on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And everybody listening, thank you for being part of the Kind Leader journey here. And with that, I'll leave you with be kind, bring value, rise together. Have an amazing day, everybody.